Welcome to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio, and today is Friday, August the 1st, 2025. Is that right? Yeah. That's crazy.
It is.
Welcome to the show. I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. It looks like folks are a little late moving in today, but Susan, glad you're here. And I know you've just been on a huge adventure, and maybe take a couple of minutes, a few more folks show up, and maybe you can share a little bit about that adventure.
Yeah, I was just
and beyond. Go ahead.
I was just on the call with Dr. Hayes, which he helped me with the worksheet, which remember I just talked to you on the phone about money, which was very important. But the trip was amazing. Just, learning more, healing my mind more and more and more deeply and being in silent meditation. And now I'm back just ready to dive deep into the truth and working with you, and that we're going to go forward and do the codependence. Going through that with people and being able to facilitate that, and I'm very excited and feel ready. I'm in readiness of that.
Well, joining you in that readiness, and delighted that you are.
Yes.
Looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds.
Yeah, me too.
And what I was planning on getting into today was based on some conversations that happened the other day, where we were talking about the forgiveness process from the Aramaic. And we kind of went through the detail of, there was a gentleman that came on who was asking the question, why would I cancel this perfectly good goal, basically was his question. So we got into the conversation of why and how canceling goals operates to collapse the constructs of the mind and give us a look at what's underneath them. And the idea of going to the other source on the planet that matches the first century Aramaic forgiveness process was something that just kind of came to mind. So I thought I would do that. And it's interesting because over the years, before we moved here to Virginia, we were traveling 6 to 10 months a year. So we've talked to dozens of Course in Miracles groups all around the country and all around the world. And I've never found anybody that has located the how-to of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles. And it's identical to the process that comes out of the Aramaic. And working with the Course, I didn't recognize it in the Course until I had the brain cells. That was one of those occasions when the idea that Yeshua says you've got to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear really came across to me on a new level, because it's plain as... Oh, really? I bet that looked like fun. Are you? Say it again, sweetheart. Oh, I don't know. We'll have to look for it. Okay, I'm back. So anyway, I thought I'd go into the lesson from Course in Miracles that lays out the forgiveness process, and it's lesson 164. If you want to jump online, if you don't have a book handy, and the title of the lesson is "Now Are We One with Him Who Is Our Source?" And I just really strongly had the inclination to share the whole lesson. It points up the importance of goals and it's the only place the technology of forgiveness, as far as I know, exists anywhere else on earth. And that's in Course in Miracles. Nowhere else does it appear. So lesson 164, now we are one with him who is our source. What time but now can truth be recognized? The present is the only time there is. And today, this instant, now, we come to look upon what is forever there, not in our sight, but in the eyes of Christ. So, the Course is talking here about, being out of your mind, remembering that sight, what we call our eyes seeing, is that our brain, carbon-based memory, generates constructs, generates pictures, has this superpower of being able to change thoughts or convert thoughts into pictures. If you get on AI and you say, I want a picture of, the AI will do it. Well, that's exactly what the mind does. And we've been convinced that our eyes are seeing what's outside of us. But in fact, metaphorically, what we think we see is an image in our brain that is, again, metaphorically painted on the inside of our eyeballs. In no way, shape, or form is it out there. So here the Course is saying, not in our sight. It's time to put sight away, but in the eyes of Christ. He looks past time and sees eternity as represented there. When you think about the fact that we generate this thing called time, it's pretty amazing to realize that no such thing exists. No such thing as that kind of separation exists. It's just another form of separation. So he hears the sounds the senseless busy world engenders. And I like the way that this lesson uses that word engenders. So where does all this noise, where does all this busyness come from? Where do sounds come from? Where do pictures come from? The brain, carbon-based memory. The ancient scriptures talked about the mind of man. It speaks of the mind of man is not yet conceived of what lies in store, what's possible. And it's not until we're out of our minds. And there's a specific technology for being out of our minds, and that's what forgiveness is. So getting rid of those sounds the senseless, busy world engenders, yet he hears them faintly. For beyond them, all he hears the song of heaven and the voice for God more clear, more meaningful, more near. And for me, the whole idea of forgiveness in the Course is to weaken that false voice. Hey, welcome, Celinda. So weakening that false voice is exactly, literally, every time we forgive, the noise, the constructs that come from the mind. When we forgive around any given issue, it's like shaving off a little bit of the impetus, a little bit of the energy that is there to present these bold images and these bold emotions as though they're real, as though they're life, when there is no life in them. That literally they're all from the past. And of course, there's no future in the past. The world fades easily away before his sight. If I'm willing to let my mind go quiet, then there's another whole set of faculties that become available. And, another ancient metaphor for this whole story is the story of David and Goliath. Goliath is this giant, swords and shields and spears and tough, and nobody can defeat him. And that's the way most people think about their own ego minds. And that's all Goliath is a symbol of that. And this is this shepherd boy. And he's got 5 smooth stones. Why does he have 5 smooth stones? Fortunately, I have never been anywhere near or had any training in the art of war. Thank God. However, I would imagine that, and I've had people say, no, a smooth stone flies truer. Well, if you got 20 or 30 feet to throw a jagged rock or a smooth rock, I don't think the Air Force is going to make, the force of air against it is going to make much difference. However, I would think that the jagged rock would be what you want. But in this particular metaphor, we've got David using 5 smooth stones, meaning what? 5 practiced faculties, the faculties of the mind of Christ in us, that when strengthened, when utilized, when engaged over and over and over again, we develop the skill of being able to listen from those 5 smooth stones: intuition, imagination, will, reason, and corrected perception. When you realize that all that Goliath, the mind of man, carbon-based memory, can give you is the conversion of thoughts into images based on whatever's resonated in a particular experience. And my take is that most people, if they've got something that they've not, if they've got a Goliath in their minds, if they've got a challenge based in some sort of pain, hostility, or fear, that thing comes roaring up with such power that it takes over, and it determines literally what they think they see, never realizing that it's what they're generating. They think they see it, because when those thoughts are resonated, it turns them into those pictures. So if we practice, if we utilize the 5 smooth stones, this next paragraph, the world fades easily away before his sight. So another world becomes available, and awareness of that other world. There are many people I've talked to over the years that say, well, the Course says we made the world. And no, not what the Course says. In fact, there's a very distinct passage that says, think not you made the world. Illusions? Yes. Oh, you got lots of those. And they trap you and they trick you, and they come up and you language as though they're actually outside of you rather than simply what's going on inside of you. As you apply forgiveness, you weaken those literal energy fields, and that world, the world of false perception, born of error, that resides inside of you, that has not left its source, weakens each time you apply forgiveness. So the sounds, the visuals from that world become dim, and a melody from far beyond the world increasingly is more and more distinct. So it's been referred to, compared to the ego voice, it's been spoken of as the still small voice. And when we weaken the noise and the tricks and the lies and the frauds of the non-being mind, then the voice of the true becomes, as this speaks, more distinct, an ancient call in which he gives an ancient answer. You will recognize them both, for they are but your answer to your Father's call to you. Christ answers for you, echoing your capital S self, using your voice to give his glad consent, accepting your deliverance for you. So as one weakens, and that's where this whole lesson is going right to the core, specific and exact, of how we maintain the world of Adamos, the world of Goliath, how it's strengthened, how it's given power. And it seems overwhelming. I know when people first start doing this work, so often it's like, but Michael, this is just hopeless. How could we ever? Well, it seems to be hopeless because you've been listening to a voice that seems invincible and true. Goliath, man, screams and shouts and puts on such a show. And it is a work to be done to weaken that voice of falsity, replace it with the voice of truth. And the trick is, while you're replacing the voice of falsity with truth, you'll still feel the energetic impact of the voice of falsity in your physiology. And my take is that's one of the things that makes it seem hopeless. But it's not hopeless because you have a practice. So paragraph 3 says, how holy is your practicing today? So recognizing that this is a body of work to be done, and that what each person is dealing with is literally 1,000 generations of stored memory in this carbon-based device that does nothing but lie to us. You know, the meaning of hostility and fear is singular. All that hostility and fear means. Now, of course, we've given hostility and fear all kinds of meanings, especially when we're carrying our membership card in the one world universal religion of blame, suffering, shame, and trauma. We've given it a meaning. And forgiving weakens that meaning. And you hear something different as you enter that practice. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to do it. It's like, well, okay, you have a right to just go along the old way, and ultimately it kills us. In fact, most people who are walking and talking around our world have never tasted their own human lives. They're so identified with this pain-based thought system that produces this image called I. And that I is false, and the objective is to replace that I through the practice, through the tools, through the work, with the true being that you are. And there's a challenge in doing that, because the only thing that true being, when it enters form, reflects as emotions and feelings and sensations in physiology is wonderment and sweetness and presence. But as you're entering the practice and bringing that mind, that second mind that was called the mind of Christ, remember Paul talked about, it was the mind of Christ in you. This isn't a mind that belongs to somebody who lived 2,000 years ago. This is that mind in you. And as you bring it online, there's still the trick of what you have not yet in your practice worked through in carbon-based memory that can distract. And if you put yourself in environments where there's a lot of corrupt data going on, that mind can raise his voice so loud that it drowns out the other possibility. It seems like, no, Goliath is the only voice there is. That other stuff was just a fantasy. It takes going into stillness, as we talked about yesterday with Lucy. Canceling goals collapses the voice from the past and allows you to enter into silence. And giving yourself time each day to be in that silence is an important piece of work, part of the work. So how quiet is a time you give to spend with him beyond the world? That is, to spend with that active presence of love. How easily are all your seeming sins forgot and all your sorrows unremembered? And they said to Yeshua, how many of these darn worksheets do we have to do anyway? Is 7 enough? The Greeks record that he said, no, 7 times 77. In Aramaic, 77 times 70 times. An infinite number of times until you're complete is the work you will do. And so as you give yourself the space to spend more time in the silence, you get to face some things that are not very nice. You get to face the things that need to be dealt with in order to quiet Goliath's voice. So as you do that, just like this particular paragraph describes what happens. On this day is grief laid by, for sights and sounds that come from nearer than the world are clear to you, who will today accept the gifts he gives. So am I going to listen to the raucous noise of Goliath? The anger, the fear, the sadness, the grief, the rage, the pain, the drama, the trauma. And sometimes that stuff can be going so strongly that it's hard not to listen to. It's one of the reasons we have a practice called My Commitment. It's a tool for engaging with and weakening that noise that doesn't allow us to receive what the five smooth stones, what the five higher faculties have to offer. So there is a silence into which the world cannot intrude. When you come to the point, and the world mind tries to understand it, the ego mind tries to understand it, and it can't. And they talked about the serenity that passes all understanding. The mind that thinks it understands things can't even start to conceive of this. There is an ancient peace you carry in your heart, and it's always been there. There's a sense of wholeness in you that, and it's like when you think of it as energy, let's imagine that my favorite radio station is 900 on the AM dial, but I have a $50,000 stereo system with an FM tuner, and the sound is much better. I can sit there with my $50,000 stereo system and my FM tuner, and I can try to tune into 900 on the AM dial, and I'm never going to hear it. It's in a different frequency range. So recognizing that the state of being, who we are as love, is always true. It's always shiny. It's always new. Although in the ruckus noise of Goliath, it may not be remembered. This is why you want to consistently, persistently, on a daily basis, apply forgiveness to the voice of Goliath to shut him up, quite literally. You've got to be out of your mind. So whatever dramas, whatever traumas, whatever you've been through, people think of loss and terror and trauma, and in the ego mind, they're horrible, yes. And it's like the AM radio signal can't get into the FM dial. Anything you've ever been through, as traumatic as it may have been, has never touched the truth of who you are, has never touched being. So there's a sense of holiness in you that the thought of sin is never touched. And remembering that word sin is just an archery term that means off the mark. Doesn't carry all the baggage that Greeks had put on it to keep people in their guilt and to keep that voice of fear alive. You look in the ancient scriptures, and well over 300 times it says, fear not. Repeatedly, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. And yet we have preachers who say fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Fear of love is the beginning of wisdom. I mean, how bizarre is that? You know that someone, even conceiving of such a thought, has not yet entered the practice. And so it is remembering the truth of being that comes to awareness as we quiet the voice through the practice. Faithfulness in practicing today will bring rewards so great and so completely different from all things you sought before that you will know that here your treasure is. And here is your rest. And, while everybody's got to eat and everybody's got to live and there are things to keep us busy, take some time each day to set aside for your relationship with being, with the truth of who you are, with the presence of love in you. So this is the day when vain imaginings part like a curtain and reveal what lies beyond them. Now is what is really there is made visible, while all the shadows which appeared to hide it merely sink away. How do they sink away? When anything based in corrupt data, whether it's something from 20 generations ago in your bloodline or something from 20 minutes ago in your own life, when active present love, when that smooth stone is present in your physiology, those corrupt energies simply dissolve. So now what is really made visible, while all the shadows, this present moment becomes available, and the shadows that hid it, and that the shadows are simply perception. Remember that lesson from What is the World? The world is false perception. Think not you made the world. Illusions, yes, the Course says. You made up a whole world, the one between your ears. It's still there, hasn't left its source. So when people say, well, if the Course says we made the world, there is a world, the Creator, a world beyond your senses that the Creator created that is available to you if you're willing to give up the world between your ears. So think not you made the world. Illusions, yes. All these, and it's interesting in the Aramaic language, the word illusions doesn't mean something that doesn't exist, as many people would interpret it. The word illusions means measured. As you measure, it will be measured unto you. They were talking about illusions. So you put an energy in, and absolutely, your perceptual constructs will reflect that energy. It's born of error. It has not left its source. And it will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. In other words, if you value your hostility, your fear, your rage, your guilt, you think it'll protect you, you think it will save you, then it won't be removed. I don't care how hard you try. I don't care how much you ask Durga for help to take this away. If under the surface you hold, but this, I'll just hold on to this so I can protect myself, then it cannot be removed. But the falsity will simply begin to sink away. Now, this lesson says, is the balance righted and the scale of judgment left to him who judges true. And in his judgment, and this is a when it speaks here of judgment, it talks about it's like you're not a gullible fool that just lets people ride over you. You can observe when error occurs, but you having forgiven that in yourself can't be lost in it, can't be stuck in it. And so you come to the experience in the world as the conscious active presence of love. Every experience. And when you find yourself unable to, and your mind goes into languaging how it's all somebody else's fault, it's one more time I get to give up my membership card in the one world religion of blame, and I get to proclaim the truth. So this isn't judgment as the world sees it. This is a mind presencing love and observing what's happening. So in the mind, what was called the mind of Christ, in you, judgment will unfold as a world of perfect innocence before your eyes. Now will you see with the eyes of Christ. Now is His transformation clear to you. Brother, this day is sacred to the world. Your vision, given you from far beyond all things within the world, looks back on them in a new light. And what you see becomes the healing and the salvation of the world. So at the moment life was breathed into you, you were given what the world, there's this whole Greek interpretation around so many things, including this word salvation. You were given that with your first breath. It is your human life. It is the presence of love that dissolves these things. Once you're willing to do your part in exposing what you've hidden from yourself through denial, through dissociation, through projection. So in this state, the valuable and the valueless are both perceived and recognized for what they are, and what is worthy of your presence receives your presence. That is the active presence of love. Well, anything feared simply dissolves. So we will not judge today. We'll receive but what is given us from judgment made beyond the world. Our practicing today becomes our gift of thankfulness for our release from blindness and misery. That old spiritual, wherefore as once I was blind, now I see. Whenever I hear that song, and I always sing along with whatever I'm listening to with music, and this can be a really good practice to start to shift your perception, even with music. And so for me, whenever I hear that song, it's not wherefore as once I was blind, now I see. That's a trickery. It's wherefore as once I was sighted, now I have vision. I thought I could see. What I was seeing was generated images reflecting the content of my own mind, painted on the inside of my walls, convincing me that it was out there in the world. And I responded accordingly, and yes, so did the world. And so the release from blindness and misery. All that we see will but increase our joy, because its holiness reflects our own. We stand forgiven in the sight of Christ, with all the world forgiven on our own. That is, not forgiven in the sense of being let off the hook, but forgiven in the sense that no speck of darkness still remains. Powerful set of words from the Course. Once you have accepted her plan, the Course does use the masculine for this elemental force in us, but in Aramaic it's feminine. Once you have accepted her plan as the one function that you would fulfill, there will be nothing else that Ruka will not arrange for you. Without your efforts, she will go before you, making straight your path and leaving in your way no stones to trip on, no obstacles to bar your way. Everything you need will be provided. Not one seeming difficulty but will melt away before you reach. You need to take care of thought for nothing, careless of everything, except the one purpose that you would fulfill. That is the reclamation of your human life and bringing it into the world. So we stand forgiven, released of all hostility or fear in the sight of Christ, with all the world forgiven in our own. We bless the world. That is, we bring this presence of love into physiology, into what looks like a body, mind you, but is this energy system. We incarnate, we embody here as love, and we bless the world as we hold in it the light in which Christ looks on us, and offer it freedom given us through his forgiving vision, not our own. That is, that when active present love enters, the dissolution, the forgiveness of everything begins. How do you do that? How do you get there? Well, here it is, straight out of the Aramaic language. Word for word, exactly as the first century Aramaic technology of Yeshua was presented. You'll notice whenever you're in upset or trauma or pain, unless you're just a generally miserable person, the only time you go into that kind of upset or pain is when someone violates a goal you hold for them. Notice, as long as everybody's doing what you want them to do, you know, your banker's doing what you want them to do, your spouse, your children, your neighbors, your employer or your employees, or yourself, the person you look in the mirror, notice you're pretty happy with pretty much everybody if they're doing what you want them to do. And the only time hostility or fear comes in is when they violate a goal for you. This is the key way into forgiveness. Open the curtain and you're practicing by merely letting go all the things you think you want. Here is the action of forgiveness. In the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag or shebak. It means to cancel. When I hold a goal, my goal recruits data that is in my mind that is in resonance with my goal, and the result of that resonance is what forms my perception, the world I see. You notice over and over and over again, the Course talks about the world you see, the world you see, the world you see. The world you see is a result of the interaction of the data within your structure and the goals you hold that recruit that data into activity. So what's it saying? The word forgive in Aramaic is shabag or shebak, and it literally means to cancel. Oh my goodness. Open a curtain, you're practicing by merely letting go all the things you think you want. What is forgiveness? The canceling of goals. When you cancel a goal, the perceptual construct based in unresolved unconscious pain or trauma collapses. And when it collapses in on itself and gives you access to what underlies it. Remember that favorite quote I offer all the time from Carl Jung: until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Oh, yeah, it's just the way life is. You know, life always, I guess, it just, you know, that's my lot in life. Yeah, that's what people say. Why? Because the power is in their unconscious and they're hiding it from themselves. What do they say in the scriptures? Take care of the heart. That word heart in our modern updated language would be the unconscious. Take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. The issues in life, your perception doesn't come from anything out there. It comes from what has resonated in you by the goal you hold for who's out there that you're blaming. And when you cancel that goal, what happens? Your trifling treasure, so the Course here calls your goal a trifling treasure. Your trifling treasure put away and leave a clean and open space within your mind where Christ can come to offer you the treasure of salvation. Now remember, we're not using that word salvation any more than we're using the word sin in the way the Greeks do. What do you need to be saved from? Your own insanity. How can you tell? You know, you're in the middle of the muddle. Goliath's going crazy, and it looks in your mind like it belongs. You know, it's everybody else's stuff. How do you tell whether or not what you're feeling is yours or not? Well, we've developed a very precise test for that. How do you tell whether or not what you're feeling is yours or not? Are you feeling it? If you're feeling it, there's a reason it's in you. And yes, you have all kinds of goals that you set to create noise to try to cover it up. But when you cancel your goal, all the things you think you want, your trifling treasure, then the recruiter, the goal that recruited this corrupt data to build this picture world you see, canceled, allows that to collapse. And now that 9-bit space, we've talked about the Harvard research in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing. The max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness in that time frame is 9 bits of data. So why do I cancel the perfectly good goal? Because I noticed that if I load a perfectly good goal in my mind and it calls into activity some form of hostility or fear, I go perceptually blind. I go blotto. And I need to clean that out. So how do you let the mind of love in? You got to make space for it. There's only 9 slots there, and that's if you're a genius. The actual lab stats on that research was 7 plus or minus 2. It can be as little as 5 bits of data, as much as 9 bits of data. And that's called in the ancient teachings the altar. Not ALTAR, but ALTER. That's where you can alter or change content. But if your mind is filled with all the insistence and all the rage that it's all their fault or all your fault or all anybody's fault, any form of corrupt data, hostility or fear-based data, you look at the goal that's driving your mind to utilize that data to form the world you see. The illusion you're seeing what you've measured into your own mind. And you cancel it and it collapses. And what's underneath it is now handed over to the mind of love in you. Notice in step 4 in the worksheet, you bring love present. You're literally calling there on what was called the mind of Christ. So cancel, let go all the things you think you want, your trifling treasures put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind where Christ can come and offer you the treasure of freedom from your past. And then it goes on to say, and he has need of your most holy mind. This is an energy in you that needs to enter the world in order for the game to change. You can't stand back pointing the finger of hostility and rage and fear and expect the world to change. So he's saying that he has need of this most holy mind of yours to save the world. Is not this purpose worthy to be yours? Is not Christ's visions worthy to be sought above the world's unsatisfying goals? Notice right at the core of it is our goals. And notice you've been brainwashed with a whole lot of things you need to accomplish, a whole lot of goals that keep you in busyness, and busyness is the number 1 drug of the world. We did a workshop in Ionia, Michigan a few years back at a high security prison. And it was a prison where it was an old Civil War facility where they brought the worst prisoners from all over the state of Michigan. And when we taught the forgiveness work, there was a lot of excitement in the people that were there, and especially in the warden. And there was a couple of teachers that went to the prison for several weeks to teach. And, we had developed, Dan McDougall and I had co-created a course called Laws of Living that we were able to cut recidivism in prisons by over 90%. These 2 teachers were going to teach that course at the prison. And the tradition, it had been recognized that if people don't invest in doing their work, then when their stuff comes up, their projections come up, they'll turn tail and run the other way. But this prison's a prison where people it's a men's prison, and they're there for 25 years to life. And none of them have any money. I mean, they might make 50 cents an hour. Slavery is still legal in America. People think it had been abolished. Go back and read your Constitution. It shall be illegal, except as punishment in a prison. And so they can force people to work for 50 cents an hour. A lot of corporations, a lot of big corporations are using prison labor. That's one of the reasons the prison industry has grown so strong. And you'll notice that a couple of administrations back, they eradicated private prisons because of that. Notice that they've been reestablished now. They were there under Bush, they were removed, and now they're back under a certain administration. There's a reason, there's money in it. So is not Christ's vision, that is the mind of love entering into you, worthy to be sought above the world's unsatisfying goals? The cost for these people that wanted, there was a large group of prison inmates that wanted to do the laws of living course. So we set it up. So the price was that through the 8 weeks that went previous to the course beginning, each person had to do 5 worksheets a day. The day the course started, every person who'd registered for it and wanted to do it had exactly the same excuse for why they did not do their 5 worksheets a day. Guess what it was? Now, this is a group of men who, unless they've got a job in the commissary or the laundry or whatever, a couple hours a day, they are locked in their cells 23 out of 24 hours. They get an hour to go to exercise, but they're locked in their cells 23 out of 24 hours. Guess what their excuse was? Not one of them had done the 5 worksheets a day. And the excuse was they were too busy. That's the number one drug. Number 2 drug, hostility. Actually, I should be revising that because it's really the number 1 drug is the addiction to the generational patterns that we hold within our minds that we don't want to face, that we don't want to deal with. And so breaking that addiction is one of the number ones. And I want to say thank you to Terry. I had a conversation with him this morning, Terry Voling, and he was talking about the AA approach. I was talking to him that I was watching when people did quantum still point, that they broke their addiction to the power person dynamic and the trauma in carbon-based memory. And he was telling me, and I'm going to start to incorporate this language into the description, that in AA, it's a mental obsession. And it fits perfectly. And the mental obsession around living life with pained dynamics has to go. So the course here is inviting you to accept a different purpose, because perception always follows purpose. And it's the purpose to accept the vision that love offers you rather than achieving all the things that keep you busy, keeping the world, quote unquote, unhappy. Yeah, they pretend if you achieve all the goals they give you, that then they'll be happy. But have you noticed that they're not happy even when you do all the things they want you to do? You know, you ever been in one of those situations? Well, if you would just do this, then I'd be happy. And you went, oh, really? Is that all you want me to do, power person? Just that? Okay, I'll do it. And you did it, right? Were they happy? No. No, actually, well, it's this. This is what you need to do. And you said, oh, if I just do that, and you did it, right? Were they happy? No. They were constitutionally unhappy because their perceptions were founded on unresolved, corrupt data, as is virtually every person that comes into the world. So then this lesson ends up with an invitation. Let not today slip by without the gifts it holds for you receiving your consent and your acceptance. We can change the world if you acknowledge them. You may not see the value your acceptance gives the world. And when they're talking about acceptance, it's to live holding this presence of love in you consciously, purposely. When you accept that, you become part of the critical mass. You know, when Yeshua, as a physicist, said, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf, he's inviting each person to do exactly what this lesson is talking about. To accept that presence of love is to bring to strengthen the energy of it in the world until it hits a critical mass, which means it then becomes available to every mind, no matter how deeply ensconced they are in trauma, addiction, abuse, pain, whatever it is. That voice becomes available through your acceptance. So even if you don't see the value your acceptance gives to the world, then certainly you can see it's what you want. And you can exchange all suffering for joy this very day. Practice in earnest. The gift is yours. Would the Creator deceive you? Can his promise fail? Can you withhold so much? Pardon me. Can you withhold so little when his hand holds out complete liberation of his son? And so we're here to support, and I see Lucy's got her hand up. So, young lady, hit your mute button. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. Hello, everybody.
Hey, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
It's a delight to have you here yesterday. I've had several people comment on how they got breakthroughs from your work yesterday. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
like feels great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have, well, first of all, I'm feeling so much better. Between yesterday and day before yesterday, I did the work. Obviously, yesterday it opened up new level for me,
Right.
and I did like about 3 worksheets. And I mean, it resolved. That layer is resolved. So thank you so
Awesome.
much. It's like
Nice.
great.
All
Like
right.
last night is. But
Yay.
I told you I did also breathing, and it more came out, and it's just amazing how things. Well, obviously, it's not only what came to my consciousness was resolved, because it felt like it's way more there, and how we even have no idea. It means we don't supposed to know when the way how Ruka is working, and kind of converting everything to well, love at best, but I can tell the level of I came to gratitude, and it's like it's so
Nice.
funny, so like not funny, how to say, so strange, if you will. It
I
feels
understand.
awesome, but strange,
Yeah.
because it's like it was almost like was no place for gratitude in that piece of work, and yet you feel it. It's just pretty awesome. So, but my question is about goal again. And from, if I look at the worksheet, and as you taught us, and that I remember, we go to constructive goal. If I want, let's say, if I have quote unquote problem with someone and I want this person go to hell, it's not exactly the best goal I can put there. Is
True.
it correct? Right?
Well, I go back a step further for correction in that statement, and that is you've never had a problem with anyone in your
Right.
life. And nobody has ever had a problem with you. But we can hallucinate that what we're in denial of belongs to somebody else and it's their fault.
Well,
So
that's
that
why
would
I
be the
said took
first
it in
correction I'd
quotes.
offer.
Yeah, right. So, well, when I did my massive, like, years work around depression and sadness and fear, anxiety, and panic attacks, which was controlling me completely. Again, we put quote where we're supposed to put them. So I
Right.
did not allow myself, because I remember the teaching, to put my main goal was for that to leave me alone, to go away, to be completely out of my system. And that one day, I remember, actually, I was working with Julie that time, and I said, like,
But notice, but
uh-huh,
when you just listen to your language there, and notice the focus is on what you don't want.
correct,
And when you
correct.
put the focus on what you don't want, focusing is a creative act. So you just created more of it. That's why that statement says the constructive result that I want. What do I want as opposed to my depression and pain to go away? I want to live in a state of connected love and happiness. That's a goal that will change things. But canceling the goal for my pain to go away won't do it.
So, right. This, I'm going to my question. So I knew I'm not doing that. And I wanted to be in control of my life. I want to live this and that. I even put like, oh, I want, I look at the, either was sadness or depression or panic attack as my feedback. You know, I look at that even as my feedback. So I want a
Right?
feedback to be more clear. So I did the variation of goals. But Michael, I will tell you, one day I said, like, okay, I really wanted to disappear, to get out of my system. And when
Mm,
I did put that unconstructive goal, if like based on teaching, it was
mm-hmm,
such a huge breakthrough. That's why I'm a little bit
mm,
in conflict. It was liberation. And now I'm a little bit in conflict because when I helping others, when I teaching this part, like well, when we're doing with people, I still teach how you teach. It's constructive goals where there is no place for that kind of goals, but yet I had huge breakthrough. It like that was like liberation, and part of that was gone. So can you please speak on that, because it did happen. It was like I had witness to that. It was like I was laughing. It literally it was liberation. So can you speak on that, please?
well, remember the objective of identifying a goal is that the pain content is in a particular file.
Yeah.
All content is organized in files, so to speak, in the mind. But I say, don't think about the color of your car. Something about the color of your car resonates in the mind. So my offering would be to disappear, would be to the tie-in for me would be to escape from this.
Yeah.
And I think that would be seen as, escape would be seen as a constructive result in a sense,
Uh-huh.
to be free of this.
Yes, and as many times as I put to be free from that, it did not do it for me.
Hmm.
But
It would
actually,
disappear, right?
it just was gone. That was be like, okay, if I'm doing worksheet on me and I do like to be free on that, okay, it's one thing. But I was doing that on a panic attack, right? Like this would be one C.
Mm.
And like I said, I used the variations of that. But when exactly, I cannot remember, it was disappear or get out of, like I put one of those. I can't remember exactly what it was, but one of those that by it, so I sort of didn't supposed to do this way, but I so wanted, I'm like, what am I losing? And it did work. So I want to share, and B, I want to kind of you to maybe talk about that. Like how come that brought me that level already, which I want to be on. And then, I mean, it wasn't done with that, but it moved me forward greatly.
Right, right. Well, again, if I feel like I'm in a trapped place and I'm lost in something, to be liberated from that, to disappear from that would, again, my take would be, in a sense, that would be a constructive goal, as opposed to, here I am stuck in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that would be I would interpret that as a constructive step,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to, if the issue you were working on was depression, well, I just don't want to be depressed anymore.
Oh,
That's
those
not gonna
particular,
that's not gonna produce the
right,
result.
right. I
But to
just
be
thought
free, but to be
even,
liberated, to
Mhm.
have myself disappear from this, I think that would open the file in the mind that needed to clean out this depression that had
Okay.
nagged you.
Okay. Okay. So
And that's the
that's
idea of the
clear.
goal, is when you cancel it, you're opening that file.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
you're collapsing the construct in the mind, the conscious construct, in on itself, and that's what gives you access to the unconscious. And if you've done step 4 in the worksheet, that love is present, and you drop into your unconscious, bringing love there is what's going to dissolve whatever the trauma-based energy is.
Okay, awesome. That piece of puzzle I needed, because in my head I still did not something which is not constructive but teaching, and yet it worked. So it kind of you put this puzzle of what expanded what is constructive. Okay, I got.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
And
great.
the idea is to look at, what have I loaded in my mind at the deepest unconscious level that brings this particular content up in me. And now because the goal, was it yesterday I talked about that, or the day before? When we talked yesterday, did I talk about the goal being the recruiter?
I mean, you talk frequently about that. That's why I can't remember which time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I had spoken about it in just the last day or two, but it's like
Yeah.
the football recruiter goes out to all the high schools in the city to
Yeah.
find the kids that are potentially pro players. When I load a goal, the resonance, the vibration, the frequency of that goal is going to search through literally my whole mind, including my whole genetic history and whatever, and it happens in an instant through resonance, energy exchange, and whatever's linked to that, bang, that's what's going to come up. And when I find the goal that's driving that pained construct, and I cancel it, that's when that collapses in on its own footprint. And that's when I get access to the massive data in my unconscious mind. And again, if I've done step 4 effectively, where I brought love present and I collapse that construct, now I bring love, the master solvent, into those unconscious parts of myself and free myself of them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great, because I remember also why I thought I classify it as constructive, because part of my mind, like it really at least it was occupied. I worked a lot about avoiding. In fact, for years I was praising myself how masterful I can avoid conflicts, avoid this, avoid that, until it was clear that there is nothing to be that proud of. And actually it created more issues in my life, right? So, and for
Right.
me, for something to kicked out of my life, like panic attack, was in my head that I'm sort of again try to pull something, like I didn't take responsibility for that. So I'm avoiding that. So that was kind of a one big blob. But now with your explanation, I understand that it's actually not necessarily.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's
Good
great.
work. Delighted to be on the team. Delighted to have you on our team.
Thank you so much.
And we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday at 4 o'clock.
Sunday.
Anybody who has done the Codependence to Interdependence Intensive, Susan Fluick is going to be doing a facilitated study of the whole self-study course, all 89 hours. We're going to at 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. If you've done the course, then, or you bought the self-study, if you were in either one of the Codependence intensives, you're invited, or you bought the self-study, then join us at 4 o'clock on Sunday, Eastern time. And you should have already gotten a note about it from us. If you haven't, please drop Jeannie or I a note, Jeannie at JEANIE@yagain.org. Or if you haven't purchase a self-study and you would like to, so that it's not a self-study, that you've got guidance and support through the whole working through that 89-hour self-study course, then drop us a note. We'll get you set up so you can join us on Sunday. In the meantime, everybody,